Salvete amici, Magister McKee here, with an advanced tip for Imperator Rome. We finance professors have hobbies, and one of mine is playing Imperator Rome. I'm creating a collection of advanced tips I've learned while playing this game, in case you want to have a study break. Today's tip is about Barbarian Hordes, like this one right here. The game tries to encourage you to defeat them in battle. There's this warning that we have our territories under siege by barbarians. But actually, we don't want to do that. We're better off just letting them occupy everything. So, when a barbarian horde enters, or spawned in, it will start sieging down each territory. When it sieges down the territory, it will add one pop, so it'll add a tribesman pop here. It'll also reduce civilization value, and one cohort will get removed. Effectively, the one cohort settles down, becomes a pop, as that's going to be part of your country. So we're getting an extra pop at the price of losing some civilization value, which reduces pop output because there's no number of bonuses, but pop output is one of them right there. 1% per point of civilization value. Now, if I let this guy occupy, I'll get 2 pops, and I'll have 2 territories that have reduced output. So it's kind of an open question. Will this be better for me to let it happen, or to stop it? And there's one additional thing with the formula, which is it's going to scale by the number of Barbarian Horde cohorts. So the bigger this army is, the more damage it does to civ value. And it is reduced by the territory's civilization value. Every point reduces it by 2%. So this guy here, this territory, has 24 civ value, so 48% reduction, almost half reduction on the damage. And if you're up to 50, because 50 times 2 is 100%, you do see 100% reduction in civilization value lost. So anything that's at 50 or above won't lose civ value. It's a free pop. Now, if we defeat the army, or this army in battle with our own, we would get loot. So gold, this horde accumulates as they occupy territories. And we get slave pops. But notice, we get 1. They have 2 cohorts. Because we defeated in battle, some of the barbarians die in battle, I suppose. It's 10%. So if I had between 1 and 10 cohorts in this horde, I would still only get 1 pop from defeating it in battle. Meanwhile, if I let it occupy, I get up to 10 pops. Now, most cities will easily get to 50. Pull up the city here. So this is our capital, which is kind of the highest, but I'm also at the very start of the game. And you get 10 just for existing. You get another 15 to 25% if you're a republic or monarch. This is less if you're tribal. You get half a point for every oratory advance. Some terrain gives you bonuses, some give you penalties. All your buildings give you civ values too. There's a few other sources of potential bonuses as well. So it's pretty easy for a city, when you put in some buildings, to get to 50% or close, so the damage is greatly reduced. Which means the only real way you might lose value is if a settlement takes damage. So there's sort of 2 cases here. One is you let them siege down all the way, you tank the civilization value, you get the free pops. Or you kill them off, you get fewer pops, but you don't lose the civilization value. And if you let them, there's a kind of a micromanagement part here where if you let them go to a single cohort, so there's 1 left, they'll still have 1 pop left that you get when you defeat it, and you'll get the loot too. That does require micromanagement. And what we really are interested in is we produce more because we get extra pops, but we also produce less because our civilization value goes down. Which effect is stronger? That's kind of an open question, one we have to do some calculations for. And let's pull up Excel to determine which side wins. Now, I have prepared this spreadsheet to test if the extra pop we gain can outweigh our loss of output from the civilization value reduction, which reduces all pop output. In order to make this spreadsheet simpler and easier to follow, I've made some simplified assumptions. So first of all, as already discussed, cities are nearly immune, so we're only going to look at settlements, and settlements have relatively low numbers of pops. So I'm going to start with 8. We could have a territory with fewer pops or more pops, although it's a pretty developed settlement if it's more than 8 pops. I'm also going to set a starting civ value of 20. Of course, if we're above 50, there's no damage at all, so the extra pop is pure benefit. But again, sometimes, especially for tribals, you're going to have lower civ value than 20, potentially higher if you are a well-developed monarchy or republic. Now, the more pops we have, the worse the civ value reduction is going to be. So that's going to cut against us allowing the occupation. If we have lower civ value, that somewhat cuts against it, although there's a cap on how much we can lose because civ value can't drop below 0. So it's actually civ value, as we shall see, does not matter. Now, settlements have mostly slave pops just based on their base ratio. So I'm going to assume all the pops are slave pops. And then we get a new tribesman who immediately demotes to a slave pop. In practice, it actually takes a few months, but again, for simplifying sake, we'll do it this way. This means that the reduction in pop happiness, which also happens because you have lower civ value, can be ignored because happiness does not change production for slave pops. And we have basically 0 nobles. We have very few citizens and freemen, probably only 1 or 2. And everything else is a slave pop. Now, I picked a number of cohorts for the Barbarian Horde. 20 is a really large number of cohorts. Usually it's going to be less than that. I'm just going to pick a high one to start with as a kind of a worst case scenario. If the cohort is at full strength for all 20, we would have a 20% reduction in civ value that gets reduced by the starting civ value. So if we have 20 as civ value, we have a 40% reduction, so it goes from 20 down to 12. And I'm calculating that civ value lost right here. And this row here, 13, is then going to be the new civ value. As our barbarian cohort drops in number of cohorts for the barbarians, the damage goes down. So we started at 20 possible damage, then we're at 19, 18. So our new civ value is going to get closer to our starting point as our barbarian horde gets smaller. We still get 1 pop, but our civ value lost is not as bad. So as our barbarian horde gets smaller, it becomes more favorable to allow the occupation. Okay, so I have in row 8, this is the output that the 8 pops are producing based on our 20% civ value. There's probably other bonuses that would be attached as well, but those are not going to change if the occupation happens. Here, I have the new value, so it's going to be 9 now because it's 8 plus 1. And it's a new civ value, it's the 8% instead of 20%. And we have the output of those 9 pops at a lower percentage bonus. So as it turns out, we're going to produce 0.144 money per month before the 20 cohort barbarians occupy. After they occupy, the 9 pops at 8% civ value are producing 0.1458. It actually goes up a little bit. So we are producing more after the occupation because of the extra pop, even though we lost civ value. Now, I'm going to change some of these assumptions that I've highlighted in yellow and to see what happens. So with civ value, if I have a lower civ value, the penalty is higher, right? So like it's 15. We can get it down to the point where I'm actually losing a little bit here. It's 0.138 going down to 0.136. Note my civ value is dropped down to 1. There's a limit here though, because if I'm down to 12, I go down to 0 civ value lost, and I'm at positive output now, 0.134 versus 0.135. And if I drop even farther, it's still not going to change. My output at the end is never going to get worse because I can't get below 0. So there might be a point where you're just barely above 0, where you're losing out, but generally speaking, it doesn't matter what civ value you have. If you're dropping well below 15 as your starting point, you'll hit 0 and you're better off. If you're way above 20, like 40, the penalty is tiny and you gain 0.02 ducats a month. So that's civ value. Unless you have a very precise civ value that matches your number of cohorts inflicting damage, you'll either hit 0 and get bounded, or you're so high that the penalty is really low. If we decrease number of pops, the percentage loss is lower, so this is always going to be better for us. If we make it really populous, so it's a 20 pop per territory, we do start losing a little bit as well, 0.36 versus 0.34. But a 20 pop settlement is really high. We probably would not have a 20 civ value for something that densely populated. And also note, if I go down here, once I get down to 9 cohorts, I'm starting to gain again. And I'm quickly picking up steam as the number of cohorts gets lower and lower. So the fewer cohorts we have, if we have less than 20, it's better for us. If we have fewer pops, it's better for us. At a really high pop level, we might see a negative net loss, at least at if we also have very high cohorts and we also have a pretty low starting civ value. But in most scenarios, most likely scenarios, either our civ value is so low that the loss of bonuses doesn't matter, or we have fewer cohorts, and so it doesn't matter that we have higher pops, or we have high civ value and it doesn't matter. So in most cases, I believe, it's actually better to allow the barbarians to occupy, as long as they don't occupy your capital. But your capital is always going to be a city, so it probably won't do damage even then. If we also factor in some additional things, for instance, the very first few territories the Horde occupies, we probably can't stop. So these, in 1918, we're still moving the army up to attack our Barbarian Horde here. And so this damage is going to happen. It's only when we get to the 4th or 5th cohort that we're actually able to stop the occupations. Secondly, if we micromanage it, we can regain a large amount of gold by stack wiping it when there's 1 cohort left. We don't lose any pops. We still get the 1 pop minimum. And we get a big chunk of gold based on how many provinces or territories they've occupied while we were waiting. We get extra pops. It doesn't just mean slave output goes up. We have a larger base for pops because those pops will eventually convert. They'll eventually assimilate. We're going to get more manpower. We're going to get more research. We're also going to get more levies. And this is at the very start. So when our civ value is dropped down to 8, but over time, each month, this civ value is going to start increasing. And so that actually, all those pops will be regaining their bonus, and the new pop will be benefiting from that increase too. Okay, so there's a lot of things that are pointing us towards allowing it to happen. If we were to prevent it from happening, we basically either have to build forts or move armies around. Forts cost a ton of money, 0.4 per month per fort, and we're talking about gains or losses of 0.01, 0.02 gold per month. It's going to take a lot of territories saved to make up for 0.4.
per month in cost. So you definitely should not be building forts to try and block barbarians. It's not worth it. If we're moving armies around, we have to raise levies, which means we lose out on taxes, manpower, research. If you're moving legions around, you were paying for them anyways, but they could have been doing something else instead of fighting barbarians. Also, we could bribe the barbarians, but again, as it costs us a lot of money, and we're not losing very much money per month if we allow the occupations to happen. So, I think overall, there's very few scenarios where the barbarians are actually going to cost us anything, and even if they do, it doesn't cost us very much. Which means the next time a barbarian horde shows up, just ignore it. It probably is not actually harming your country, and trying to stop them would inflict more harm in your country than what they're doing to you. Now, this is almost certainly a mistake on Paradox's part. Barbarians are clearly intended to be a problem you need to deal with. But if we look at the math behind how they are inflicting damage on your country, they're not actually doing much damage. So it's not actually a problem you need to deal with. Ignore that pop-up, let them occupy. If you found this video helpful for your study break, please comment, like, and/or subscribe so that others can find this video too. Happy not studying.